In the summer of 1993, in a South Florida resort community, a 20-year-old boy was found beaten and stabbed to death in one of the most brutal murders area police had ever seen.
Forensic evidence, yes, you would say that this person had been ripped apart as if by animals.
The murder was committed with extreme savagery.
It's like a message. He's got something against this person.
This was like one of the worst cases of human behavior that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of up the road.
Soon, a bizarre story unfolded. One of sex, jealousy, and revenge. Bobby graduated with good grades from South Broward High School. While not an overachiever, he was motivated and popular. After graduation, Bobby enrolled in the local community college and picked up extra money working at a local grocery store. Bobby Kent had ambitions. He wanted to start his own car stereo business.
Bobby is a willful kid. He's a goal-directed young man. Bobby is somebody who finishes high school and goes on to college and has plans to go into business with his father. He has
going out for the evening, with whom he didn't say. Around midnight, Bobby's best friend, Marty Puccio, called Bobby's home.
Sorry, I missed your call. Please leave a message.
When the phone machine answered, he left an unusual message. Marty said he had gotten home safely and was calling just as Bobby requested.
I called you. You asked me to call you when I got home.
The call woke Mr. Kent, and when he heard the message, he immediately checked to see if Bobby was home.
bottom of it, and he went straight home and called the police.
Police treated Bobby Kent's disappearance as a missing persons case. But like Mr. Kent, police thought Marty Puccio knew more about Bobby's whereabouts than he was admitting. Police taped their interview with Marty.
Do you have any personal knowledge as to what might have happened to Bobby?
I hope he's not. I pray to God he's not dead. Because I don't know how I'd live my life. It'd be very hard for me.
The same series of questions was asked of Lisa Conley.
Do you know who had anything to do with Bobby's disappearance?
If I knew, I would tell you.
And police questioned Bobby's other friends to see if they knew where he had gone. One was Bobby's one-time girlfriend, 19-year-old Allie Willis, who didn't have many good things to say about Bobby.
Bobby was very abusive, raped her, according to Allie, and beat her up.
But Bobby's parents and the police were convinced he watched as Bobby forced Marty to play with his pet Doberman.
Marty knew from experience that the Doberman would attack him if he went into the backyard and bite him, and pleaded with Bobby not to make him do it, and Bobby insisted.
But just as always, Bobby's dog attacked. The dog lacerated Marty's arms and bit him around the legs. When it was over, Marty was bleeding, humiliated, and Bobby was laughing. Dr. Helen Smith, a forensic psychologist familiar with this case, offers a possible explanation.
It sounded almost like a sadomasochistic relationship that was going on between Puccio and Bobby Kent.
Come on, play with the dog.
Young boys and girls can kind of play these games where one of them is the instigator of violence and the other one is the recipient, and there's something very satisfying about it to both of them psychologically.
Another person who experienced Bobby Kent's dark side was a gay man the boys met at the gym. The man reportedly expressed an interest in the well-built pair, but there was no evidence that Bobby or Marty had any sexual interest in men. But Bobby had an idea, a way he and Marty could use this man to make some money. They would produce and direct a gay pornographic movie with his father's video equipment. Their new friend would be the star. The man agreed.
Video consisted of the man standing in front of the camera and dancing naked and performing certain sex acts on himself. I don't know the details of why they were able to get him to do it. I don't believe that they paid him. I think this grew out of a relationship between the three.
When it was completed, Bobby tried to sell the video to numerous
some of those young men would beat you up if you said they were gay. But they do strip for this male homosexual audience who then come up and give them tips and in some instances arrange assignations.
Published accounts say that Bobby pushed Marty into dancing at the club. Marty was reluctant, but became something of a hit among club regulars.
Marty was dancing on stage at Bobby's insistence, and then they were splitting the money that Marty earned by dancing there.
When Marty wanted to quit, Bobby refused to allow it and allegedly blackmailed him by threatening to tell friends that Marty was a homosexual.
All the dancing and throwing the dog on you, it's humiliating.
Lisa Connolly was appalled at the way Bobby treated her boyfriend Marty and would often complain about it. But for reasons only dimly understood, even now, there was a violent undercurrent in relations between the two. And their aggression was often directed at others, mostly those who were smaller and weaker.
At the grocery store where Marty and Bobby worked, there was an adult male who was retarded and was a sacker. And they knew when this man got off work. This is a man who walked to a nearby apartment where he lived. He didn't have a car, and he carried groceries home at the end of the day. So one of their games, both of them, Bobby and Marty, was to wait for this man to get off work and then to follow him along the road, and they would take a football and throw it at the man's head as hard as they could to try to make him fall with his groceries. They thought that kind of thing was funny. And I think that speaks volumes about what kind of kids both of these young men were.
4 days after Bobby Kent's disappearance, Broward County homicide detective Frank Ilaraza was told that a body had been found in a deserted location near the Everglades. The decomposing body was clad in the white t-shirt and jeans Bobby Kent had last been wearing. The driver's license on the victim provided positive identification. It was Bobby Kent.
It told us that it was more than one person because you had stab wounds and you had blunt head trauma. So that in itself told us that it was more than one person that was involved in doing this.
There was a particular viciousness in this crime. It might make me think that it was a gang crime.
In their search, investigators discovered that Bobby Kent had abusive and sometimes violent relationships with his so-called friends. This was certainly true of his best friend, Marty Puccio, but also with Marty's girlfriend, an 18-year-old high school dropout named Lisa Connolly. She was slightly overweight and very self-conscious about it. Marty Puccio, a good-looking surfer type with a highly developed physique, was her first boyfriend. Lisa's cousin, Derek DeVerco, said she was obsessed with Marty.
If Marty would have told my cousin to get up on a roof and do a half gator and land in the grass, you know, she'd ask, do you want a 10-point dive? She would have done it.
Lisa Conley was no fan of Bobby Kent. Bobby ridiculed Lisa, often calling her Shamu the Whale, a reference to her weight. She also believed that Marty was spending too much time with Bobby and not enough time with her. Derek DeVerco also thought Bobby and Marty were unusually close.
When I seen one, the other one was always around. They were like the two M&Ms in the commercial, red and yellow. When you seen one, the other one was around.
And another person out of Bobby's past, with her own possible vendetta against him, was his one-time girlfriend, Allie Willis, a 19-year-old high school dropout who was no stranger to law enforcement. She was a former teen prostitute, making $150 an hour, working for an escort service that catered to men with a penchant for underage girls. She told friends that Bobby had once raped her on a date, but she never reported it to police. Allie's new boyfriend, 18-year-old Donnie Semenek, also had expressed anger towards Bobby for the alleged rape. In order to determine whether these potential suspects had an alibi for the time of Bobby's murder, the time of death needed to be established. Bobby Kent had been missing for 4 days before the body was discovered. Time of death is usually established in 3 ways. One is body temperature. Not workable in Bobby Kent's case since too much time had passed. The body was already cold when found. Another method is to examine the victim's stomach contents and the stage of digestion. In Bobby Kent's case, no identifiable matter was found in his digestive tract. The third method is insect activity. Sand crabs and fly larvae, also called maggots, were feeding on the corpse.
It may be very impossible, just given the stage of decomposition, to come up with an estimate of time of death. That's why we use the maggots, because the maggots are a quantitative method of using a scientific means, a natural science means of establishing the time interval of death.
Flies have a keen sense of smell and can pick up the scent of a dead body from over a mile away.
They'll be laying eggs within the first 2 hours, 3 hours after death, given the adequate environmental conditions. If it's 80 degrees, it's a nice summer day, and we have sunlight, daylight, the flies will be out searching, and if you die, they're going to find you very, very fast.
The development of the larvae can tell investigators when the victim died. The warmer the temperature, the faster. Would be much better off without him. She also saw him as a rival to her relationship with Marty. But how does a girlfriend separate two boys who have been best friends their entire lives?
She knew that there was, as I said, a love-hate relationship between Kent and Puccio, and that they were not going to split up unless, it's almost like in a divorce case. Some divorces are not over until one of them is dead.
I think there's something really messed up with him.
Investigators learned that Lisa made statements to Marty and others that Bobby deserved to die for all the violence he had inflicted on them and their friends. Through informants, investigators also learned of a meeting Lisa had prior to Bobby's disappearance. She gathered a group of friends, some who had a history with Bobby and others who barely seemed to know him. Her boyfriend Marty was there. Allie Willis was too. So was Allie's new boyfriend, 18-year-old Donnie Semenek, eager to avenge the alleged rape. Lisa's cousin, Derek DeVerco, was also there, along with a crack-addicted 18-year-old named Heather Swallers. Both participated in the meetings for reasons still not fully known. When the group gathered, Lisa laid out a plan to repay Bobby Kent for the way he had treated others. But Lisa was aware the group needed two things. They needed weapons and the help of someone who had experience committing murder. They turned to 20-year-old Derek Kaufman, a 6'3", 240-pound high school dropout, who, like all the others, came from a respectable who were naive enough to believe his stories. The group was now set, and witnesses say the discussions soon turned to murder.
So there's this funny kind of conversational chemistry going on where they take this act, which is basically unthinkable, and they make it thinkable, and they make it they turn it into real life.
Under any other circumstance, they wouldn't have done something like this. But they all get together, they're doing drugs, they're talking about it.
Located one scuba knife, and Donnie Semenek brought the other. Derek DeVerco, who thought they were just going to scare Bobby Kent, went home and grabbed this 25-ounce aluminum baseball bat. All they needed now was some way to lure Bobby Kent to a deserted place. But why would he want his best friend dead? The two had been close for most of their lives.
Just close the door, man.
But their relationship was marked by strange episodes of violence, episodes in which Marty was always the victim. A few years earlier, Marty asked his parents to move to another town. When they declined,
along with Bobby on some of his bullying adventures, like beating up gay guys, like beating up retarded kids. Marty was a bully too. Bobby was just a bigger, stronger bully than Marty.
Derek DeVerco gave police the names of everyone with Marty and Lisa on the night Bobby was killed. When questioned by police, with the exception of Marty Puccio and Lisa Conley, all told the same story.
They still have not finalized a plan.
The plan involved Allie Willis leading Bobby Kent to the water's edge on the pretense of having sex. Everyone headed towards the water, except Lisa, who stayed behind. The cue for the attack was to come from Heather Swallers.
I think there are any alligators in there.
And when she did, the attack began. Donnie Semenek struck the first blow, a stab wound in the back of the neck. As the girls rushed to the cars, Bobby Kent staggered and called to Marty, begging him for help.
Marty, help me, it's free!
Marty started coming to him. He's like, oh, Marty, I'm bleeding. Marty just gutted him.
Bobby was now surrounded by Marty, Derek Kaufman, Derek DeVerco, and Donnie Semenek. Slowly bleeding to death, he pleaded for his life.
Bobby then calls to Marty, my God, and says, I'm sorry for whatever I've done, and begs for mercy.
In front of the cars, in the beams of the headlights, Bobby Kent struggled to breathe.
Marty straddles Bobby and takes his hunting knife and slits his throat.
Derek Kaufman, who didn't even know Bobby Kent, straddled his body with a baseball bat and struck the final blow.
It was like everything stopped. This was one of the worst cases of human behavior that I've ever seen.
If anyone says a word about this, I swear I will kill them.
Everyone there took that threat seriously.
After seeing 3 people brutally kill somebody and like hunt him down, how could I not believe him, you know? And it's just, it scared me to death.
The group lifted the body and rolled it to the water's edge, apparently in the belief that alligators would eat it. That night, after he returned home from the murder, Marty Puccio made a mistake.
Bobby, this is Marty Puccio. I called you. You asked me to call you when I...
The telephone call to Bobby Kent's house, which Mr. Kent found suspicious, prompted him to call police. The police sure he was dead. Police had no doubt these suspects were telling the truth.
In this case, you have the body. Without the body, you have a story that's being told by them, but you really have no way of knowing whether that's true or not. But now you have the body, so the body, you're able to show that what they're telling us is consistent with what we have on the body.
The knives used in the crime were never recovered. They were thrown into the water after the murder. The bat was found, but tested negative for blood. Police arrested all 7 individuals and charged them with first-degree murder. The defense in all the cases was exactly the same.
Each kid tried to argue through his attorney or her attorney that he or she was not the principal actor, was in fact just an innocent bystander. The common theme you heard both in the courthouse and from the parents was these were good kids, or this was a good kid who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
In an already bizarre case, investigators learned about an earlier attempt on Bobby Kent's life, one that would prove conclusively who had masterminded his murder. With all of the known conspirators in jail awaiting trial for Bobby Kent's murder, Lisa Conley contended that she was innocent since she was at the car away from the area where the murder took place.
Lisa Conley was the ringleader behind this whole thing. She's the one who orchestrated it. She's the one who had a motive for Bobby being out of the way.
Lisa Conley was the dynamic leader in the group, and she was the one that initiated it, and she was the one that wanted Kent out of the picture because Kent was interfering with her relationship with Puccio.
Lisa Conley kept it going. Lisa Conley motivated the others.
Lisa and Allie Willis had asked Bobby to join them one night for a drive to a deserted area with the promise of sex. As Allie and Bobby walked towards the water, Lisa stayed behind. The girls had solved the problem of how to shoot Bobby without also hitting Allie. On a prearranged signal, Allie would discreetly get out of the way. A clean shot. With Bobby's life in her hands, she couldn't do it. Bobby left the scene completely unaware of how close he'd come to losing his life. Lisa was also afraid the gun could be traced back to her because of ballistics and the fact that the gun was registered in her
and get everybody else to do it, manipulate people into doing what you want them to do, then you're not responsible. She said up until the end that, look, I'm not responsible. I didn't touch the guy.
South Florida, and soon the nation, were shocked by the brutality of the crime. How, the public asked, could a group of middle-class teenagers become capable of such violence? Dr. Charles Patrick Ewing, author of Kids Who Kill, says the answers vary, and that there's no clear-cut explanation.
What starts out as an idea or a fantasy only becomes reality when one of the people in the group acts on it. And then that act by that one person unleashes the acts of the others. It gives permission to the others to act out violently, and in some cases it stimulates violence.
Among members of a like-minded group, an almost pack mentality can develop, and on rare occasions spiral into murder if one or more members of the
get involved in something like this. So to me, what was fascinating was the dichotomy. And to me, what was fascinating was I could see why they would want to kill this guy. And then I couldn't understand why they did. And I thought if I could convey that in a motion picture, you'd have something pretty special.
That aspect of the case is one that continues to generate controversy. Was Bobby Kent, in fact, a bully? Or was this just a convenient defense for a group of bored teenagers, all high school dropouts, who had nothing better to do with their lives than killing someone? 20 months after Bobby Kent's murder, all of the conspirators went on trial, and all pleaded not guilty. Each said they weren't responsible. They were just along for the ride, and all pointed their fingers at one another. In 7 separate trials, all were found guilty of murder and conspiracy. Derek Kaufman, who struck Bobby in the head with a baseball bat, got life in prison. As
case scenario, they were just gonna jump him. You know, it was just gonna be a 3-on-1. They were just gonna beat the shit out of him. So, but like I said, it didn't happen that way. You know, I wish it would have happened that way.
for his role in the murder, Marty Puccio was sentenced to die in the electric chair. His sentence was later reduced to life in prison. Lisa Conley was also sentenced to life in prison, but her sentence was later reduced. Lisa Conley and Marty Puccio still maintain contact. At the time of the murder, Lisa was pregnant. While in prison, she gave birth to a baby girl. She claims that Marty Puccio is the father, but rumors persist that the real father is Bobby Kent.
Marty was saying no, it wasn't his, because they were saying she slept with both of them. And I asked her to be really honest with me, and she said no. She never slept with Bobby Kent.
Lisa's cousin, Derek, sees the child regularly.
My niece?